with champagne. Pop. It's my house. Come on, turn it up.
Welcome to another edition of Wings Weekly. Jay Klein Connect here, along with head coach Scott Langer. Coach, lots to talk about. Of course, the regular season kicked off there in Bismarck, and we'll kind of jump into that right away. Blaine on this schedule for this week, and a lot of hockey being played for sure. So we'll touch on that a little bit again too. But up in Bismarck, kind of recap the game. There was you guys get on the board first. Strike first blood, if you will, or whatever. Carson Demoff gets a nice goal, and a 1-1 game at the end of one. Shots on goal were even. A real physical game, it seemed like, and it seemed like right away that was pretty obvious for both teams. Pretty evenly matched. Walk us through the first period. What were your thoughts after one?
I thought being the first game on the road, I thought we approached the first period really well. We stayed out of the box and we were on the attack, for a good portion of the first period. And when you're on the road, no matter what, you can come out of the first period, even or up a goal, you're doing okay.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. Well, then the second kind of went a different direction. It felt like maybe the guys lost their composure a little bit, and some penalties that you would have liked to avoid taking, of course, and maybe a little bit of real emotional in the second. And I wondered if maybe that wasn't a product of a little bit of a young team, kind of gelling together and kind of getting their some growing pains, if you will. But end up with 2 power play goals for Bismarck there and 1 shorthanded. And the tide turned a little bit. Your guys, played. I think the energy level was excellent. They played with passion and excitement, aggression. Still, it stayed physical, but it definitely a little bit of a turn from the first period. What did you guys think after 2?
Well, once you start taking penalties like that and you put yourself on your heels, and it's tough to recover. It's not like they did anything unbelievable against us. You look at the goals they scored on the power play, they barely found the back of the net, but they did, and in a 1-1 hockey game, you don't need to be taking, selfish penalties like we did, and especially being on the road and wake them up, and that's what we did. Our specialty teams, obviously, it wasn't really a 7-2 game, it wasn't, but you take those type of penalties, and then your power play doesn't come on the ice, you make it 4-2, your power play comes on the ice, and they're not ready to compete, and that's the end of the game right there.
Yeah, well, and it did, like I say, the start of the third, as I mentioned, the second obviously a little bit different. The start of the third kind of felt to me like it was back to the first. They were a little bit more composed, playing physical again, and really evenly matched back and forth. And I think about the first 10 minutes of the third, it really felt like there was a bit of a recovery, if you will. Of course, Tyler Bossert scores a goal, nice assist by Carter Rue to make it 4-2, and then about halfway through, a couple of defensive breakdowns perhaps, and they had some odd man rushes and were able to tack on a couple more goals. I always wonder if, after a period like the second, where things were a little sloppy perhaps, and it's first game, of course, very early on in the season and everything, but do you feel like these are young men? Do they get a little defeated perhaps, and maybe kind of a little, and the level of effort perhaps, or whatever it might have been, it maybe drops off a little bit towards the end of the third? Because I'm not saying that it did, because I do feel like they played really well, and they played strong, very aggressive, and the energy was up, but it just felt like emotionally maybe they kind of let down a little bit towards the end of the third, and that's an outsider's perspective, of course. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the third.
Yeah, there's no question. There was a point there in the game that our guys just kind of packed it in. And that's the most disturbing part about this game against Bismarck is once we made a few mistakes and they capitalized on them, we weren't prepared to battle back, and that's not the mentality we're going to have here in Aberdeen. There's no way. If the guys that are currently here are going to pack it in, then we're going to find guys that are willing to go and give it everything they have. But again, it's the first game. We're still learning one another and how we're going to react to things. But when we made it 4-2, we're still in a hockey game, and it was quite opposite. Our guys just kind of let off the gas a bit, and it was all Bismarck from there.
Yeah, well, and as I mentioned, I honestly, without a couple of those penalties and the power play goals or whatever, you've got an entirely different game. And I do think it was, each period was a game in its own. But overall, I and I know you mentioned this, in between periods too. But the energy level was definitely there. The guys skated hard. So a lot of positives that could be taken away from a game like that too. What are some that you and Coach Bone, feel good about coming out of that?
Well, I mean, again, I thought that our guys came out with a lot of energy. They just maybe had a little too much energy there in the second, which created some emotion and found our way to the box. I mean, obviously there probably could have been some even up calls within that time frame but it didn't go our way. And, what we're taking out of that game is that we're going to learn to win. And the feeling of getting on the bus after getting beat 7-2 and having to travel back to Aberdeen is, personally for me, it's just a horrible feeling, and it creates a long weekend. So, it didn't sit too well with the guys, and we addressed that this morning. And I'm looking for our guys to respond. We're going to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, but it's not okay, to kind of sort of pack it in just because the team had some fortunate success against some of your mistakes on the specialty teams. So, we're going to have our days when we catch teams in the same scenario, and I'll guarantee that. But we do have to take something from this. We got to learn from it, and the biggest thing to learn from is the feeling you get when you lose a hockey game, and you got to face yourselves and get back on the bus and feel that way. And we didn't get an opportunity to go back at them the second day. Usually you have an opportunity during the weekend to kind of fix your problems and get right back at it. But for us, unfortunately, we have to kind of have that in our brain heading into the showcase, which is it's going to take a lot of work for us mentally as a team to get on the right track.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and a couple other positives that I thought, I thought time of possession was pretty good. You guys were able to maintain and control the puck at different parts of the game. And face-offs, I don't know exactly what the statistics were, but it felt like and seemed like you guys were able to control quite a few face-offs. So those are certainly some good points as well, if they're accurate, that is. But it definitely helps when you can start with the puck. So again, some positive things, some things to learn from a 7-2 loss in Bismarck. But again, very early on in the season, lots of room for improvement, but some things obviously that can be taken away from it too. So as I stutter and stammer my way through this first segment, we're going to take a break and be back with our second segment after we hear from one of our sponsors.
Let's make a taco. No, seriously. Start with a tortilla, soft tortilla. Warm it, kiss it. Don't kiss it. Chicken? How about tequila lime chicken? Now we're cooking. Slice this, peel that, snip those. Salsa? Verde. Cheese? Cotija. Oh, forgot to mention. Guac. That's better. See, anyone can make a taco, but we're not anyone. We're Qdoba, and these are knockout tacos. Qdoba Mexican Eats. Choose flavor.
Welcome back to Wings Weekly. Scott Langer, of course, head coach of the Aberdeen Wings. I'm Jay Klein Connect. Coach, we kind of recapped the game that was there in Bismarck, and now you move forward. And you talked about addressing the players this morning about kind of shaking that off and moving forward from a learning perspective and a growth perspective. But you've got a short window here where you were going to, right back on it on Wednesday. Headed for the cities, not getting a lot of chance to have on-ice practice and stuff to prepare for these 4 games. And we talked last week a little bit about some of the challenges that the showcase brings, and some of the positives obviously too. But what do you do to get prepared for your first game against Corpus Christi in a short period of time here?
Well, I mean, obviously the first hurdle is getting mentally over our last stumble against Bismarck, and as of this morning, we're done with that, and it's time to move on. But we're going to have 2 practices, and again, we're looking to have solid practices because preparation is so important. And then we'll move into Corpus Christi, where all we have is against them is to be able to kind of dissect them a little bit on video and show the guys some of their tendencies. But other than that, it's these guys know how to play the game, and they just have to play it. But they have to play it together. We don't need any individual efforts. We need a team effort. And as soon as we get to that point where we're relying on one another, we're going to be a pretty good team.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned when we talked about it a little bit last week, with that short window, you really don't have a lot of time to prepare individually and especially in 4 days. So again, the preparation is going to come from you guys working on your game, and as you said, these young men know how to play the game. It's just a matter of focusing on doing the right things and doing them well. Do you, and you also mentioned, you know, that it's the team effort that shows off for the scouts and stuff too, and that gives the player an opportunity to shine. I'm curious, is that something that you discuss with them, maybe going in to try to, well, take away any chances or any possibility that someone's going to, you know, not going to buy into that? Is that something that you talk to them about the best way that they can impress people is by playing as a team?
For sure. I think that's definitely a discussion you have to have, and you know, I've had the fortunate ability to be in this tournament for quite a few years, and I've seen the good and the bad, and obviously the good is when you're playing as a group and you're winning some games, because the reality is if you're not winning, you're not successful, the scouts are going to go into another building and watch other teams. So if you want them to be in there watching your squad and watching what you can do, you need to do well. I mean, it's no reason to sugarcoat it to your guys. I mean, it's truth.
Yeah.
So we'll discuss it and how to approach it, and you know, we'll take one period at a time and hopefully get out of there, you know, with a positive feeling.
Well, going into a 4-game stretch, as we talked about, and then of course coming off of the Bismarck loss, what is the overall health of the team? Anybody that's any banged up or kind of nicked up from? I know a couple of guys took some big licks there in Bismarck. Is everybody doing all right?
Yeah, for the most part. You know, we went through a whole week last week of team illness, and it was pretty extensive actually. You know, the first time we got guys back together was the day before we played. So. For the most part, it looks like they're starting to get a little better in that area. You know, we had a couple, you know, minor things that, you know, guys are just going to have to play through. But, you know, I think for the most part, our health is okay.
Good deal. And again, especially important perhaps this week with so many games back to back to back. Well, folks, of course, speaking of the Blaine Showcase, that is at the Schwann Super Rink. They're in Blaine, Minnesota. And a reminder that the games can be heard on 94.1 The Rock, FastHockey.com, on HubCityRadio.com, and then now you can watch the games at Buffalo Wings and Rings here on 6th Avenue as well. They're going to be broadcasting the games. I'm not sure about the 10 o'clock game. Maybe that might be a little early for them, but I think they'll have it on. So you can stop out and check the games out on any of those different outlets or sources. That's pretty much going to wrap it up for this Wings Weekly. We'll be back next week.
Open up the champagne, pop. It's my house, come on, turn it up. Hear a knock on the door and the night begins. Cause we've done this before, so you come on in. Make yourself at my home, tell me where